Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to our Diabetes Sisters Life Class webinar, Candid Discussions about Diabetes and Exercise. My name is Sarah Mart, and I'm the Director of Operations for Diabetes Sisters. This month, we welcome Diabetes Sisters Advisor, Faculty, and Webinar Moderator, Susan Weiner. She will facilitate today's conversation with Christel Oerum and Rachel Zinman, two women living with diabetes who are also exercise professionals and exercise enthusiasts. Please welcome Susan to lead this important conversation with Christel and Rachel on diabetes and exercise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that lovely introduction, and a big thank you to Diabetes Sisters for hosting this, what I promise you will be a very informative, engaging, and fun discussion today. We are so grateful to each and every one of you for joining us, and we really encourage you throughout the presentation to reach out if you have any questions or comments at all. Can we have the next slide, please? Actually, we're going to go to 2 slides after this on the benefits of exercise. Fitness means being able to perform physical activity, of course, but it also means having the energy and the strength to feel as good as possible. Getting even more fit, just a little bit more fit, can improve your health. Whether you decide to walk or lift weights, do yoga, do chores around the home, it's all good. Regardless of what you do, regular exercise and physical activity is one of the keys to your journey on better health and just overall well-being. We know that exercise does so many good things for everyone, especially for people with prediabetes, type 1 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes. And certainly it helps to improve your blood glucose levels, but it does even more than that. Did you know that it could also help lower your blood pressure and improve your blood lipid levels, your cholesterol levels? For me, I exercise because it helps me sleep better, and it also reduces my stress, and it helps keep me really from being very flexible, and it helps keep me on balance and prevents me from falling, especially when I run. All my stretching and other balance exercise helps so much. It also helps to reduce the symptoms of depression and overall improves your quality of life. And I'm sure that many people listening today have thought about trying new physical activities, like maybe checking out yoga, but you didn't know the first thing about a pose. I didn't know what a tree pose was. Or you may be ready to start lifting weights or even learn about resistance training. Well, today we have 2 incredible experts with us to help navigate those waters. Even if you haven't embraced movement in decades or in recent years, believe me, after today, you're going to want to get started. Next slide, please. I'd love to introduce everyone to my friend who's joining us today, Christel Orem. And Christel is an incredible person who is living with type 1 diabetes since 1977, and she's also the founder of DiabetesStrong.com. She's the creator of the Fit with Diabetes Challenges and the Fit with Diabetes ebook, which we're going to take a much deeper dive in later in today's discussion. Welcome, Christel.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate being here with you ladies and all you guys listening in. So, and thank you for that very nice introduction. So only one correction. I was diagnosed in 97. So it's been 20 years. And as Susan said, I've been living with diabetes. And what I then did was kind of moved into the fitness world simply based on my own experience as an active woman. And Diabetes Strong came to be simply because I, as an active type 1 or an actual insulin taking person with diabetes, couldn't find the resources to be active and healthy. I couldn't find those resources anywhere, so I created them. So that's what you're going to find on Diabetes Strong. It's only diabetes, and it's not just for type 1s, it's for any types, and we call it sort of general fitness, which basically just means movement. It means going for a leisure run or something like that, or doing resistance training. And that's what I do.
And how does the general fitness and the work that you do around the areas of general fitness help a person who has type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes, or in fact somebody with pre-diabetes, someone who just wants to start moving?
Oh, for sure. And yeah, that's a great point, because it is, as I said, it just doesn't matter which kind of diabetes we have. Some tools on the website. But anyway, I think you hit on a lot of it up front, saying, well, we all need to, be healthy. We all need to move, but especially for us with diabetes. And it's not just, your general health. It's really beneficial for. It can also support your diabetes management in regards to increasing insulin sensitivity and lower blood glucose. And that's probably the only way you can do that as a person living with diabetes, with, in a natural way. So for us who are insulin dependent, of course, we still have to take our insulin. But I found that exercising can make the whole diabetes management easier. That is that when you start understanding how it impacts your blood sugars, how it impacts your overall life, and start putting all those pieces together, you can successfully exercise and increase your health or improve your health living with diabetes. And I think also one of those things that, how can it help us? Well, you also mentioned better sleep, etc. But it can actually also be fun. And I know some of you out there right now are sitting looking here at the screen going, hey, you're kidding me. It's not fun. Well, the thing is, exercise doesn't have to be running 5K, running a marathon, or lifting weights or whatever. It can be something that you actually enjoy. It might be, challenging. That's all good, but it can be fun. So, and it doesn't have to require a gym. So we're going to go a little more into details about that in a minute, but that's general my world.
And that sounds fascinating and really fun. And as we were both alluding to, we will go into more about the diabetes challenge, because I think that that's going to be amazing for so many of our listeners today. Next slide, please. And next, I want to introduce our other incredible expert joining us today. This is Rachel Zinman, who's been living with diabetes since 2008. She is the founder of Yoga for Diabetes. And welcome, Rachel.
Hi, it's so great to be here. And I love listening to your introduction, because it just reminds me how powerful exercise is in managing our health as well as our diabetes. And when I was diagnosed in 2008, I was already a yoga teacher of over 25 years, and I had been so healthy and so fit. And it was just such a shock to me to receive the diagnosis. And I actually felt in a way that yoga had somehow let me down. But what I didn't realize was that it was the yoga practice that had actually preserved my health and kept me as strong as I was. I probably would have been diagnosed a lot sooner than that. And really, it was to do a lot with the stress-reducing qualities of yoga. And I went online and I wanted to find other people who were using yoga to help them manage their diabetes. And it was actually really hard to find a demographic or people. There was a lot of information about it sort of from Indian doctors, but there wasn't anything that I could sort of find in the West. And so I thought, look, I need to create something. I need to write something to share how much yoga has helped me. And that's how I came about writing my book. And the big message that I really want to share with everyone is that yoga is the perfect complement to a daily diabetes management plan.
And how specifically can yoga help someone with diabetes who might be feeling a little anxious or perhaps a little depressed or a little burnt out?
Well, as I said, the big thing is that it reduces stress. And we, through our daily management, the cortisol level is increasing. And yoga, through the combination of movement and breath, even the simplest of things, just raising your arm and following it with your breath and lowering your arm and following it with your breath, is going to reduce those cortisol levels. Because as soon as the mind is occupied, it stops thinking about all the stressful things. like Christel said, it increases insulin sensitivity. It promotes weight loss because, you're moving into areas that, you're doing twists and side leans and things that you wouldn't normally do in our everyday movements. So it tones a lot of the body. It improves sleep, enhances mood, balances blood sugars, reduces that anxiety. And so it's such a powerful way to holistically apply yoga to your life.
I love it. Next slide, please. So intriguing. When the three of us were first putting this webinar together, one of the things that struck me as I was listening is that, you don't have to choose between strength training and running and yoga. We can do just a little bit of everything on our journey towards better health and better fitness. So I want to ask both of you, and Christel, let's start with you. How do you get started? If someone has not been physically active or may just feel intimidated with getting started with being healthier, with more movement, how do you encourage somebody, motivate them, or what suggestions do you have?
I've seen working with people with diabetes in general, have people reach out to me that there's generally two barriers. And the first one is where to start. If you have been out of the game for a little while, or maybe, you never really thought about exercising, where do you start? If you go online and type in exercise, you're going to be bombarded, and there's going to be very little information specifically to people with diabetes. So I would say the first thing people get intimidated about, where to start, what should I do? Should I sign up to run a 10K or whatever? And the next thing that sort of shows up of concerns is, well, if you take insulin or some of the other type 2 drugs and you're at risk of your blood sugars dropping significantly during exercise, what do you do? So I'd say those are the two main challenges. And when we sort of dig a little bit deeper into, okay, where should we start? What I always tell people is, well, I said that up front as well, exercise and getting active doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be spinning. It doesn't have to be resistance training. It can be whatever you want it to be as long as you move. So goal here is to get moving more, a little bit more than you're doing now. And it's to get your heart rate up a little bit. So I often ask people going like, so what did you do as a kid? What kind of games did you enjoy? Did you enjoy dancing? Yeah, because if you can tap into the, the childish joy of movement, I think you're going to be way more successful. Thing is also, and that's also, the first time we do something, it might be hard. But first of all, if it's fun, we probably continue doing it. And as we continue to do it, our health or our fitness level improves, and then we can start taking on new things. So it's always about, if you haven't really done a whole lot, let's say the last 3 months, the last year, the last 10 years, then let's start slow. Yeah, maybe it is, pulling out the old Jane Fonda exercise tapes and doing those. That's all good. So find your joy, find something that's fun, and start, start with what fits your fitness level.
For what's comfortable and not to overshoot, maybe finding times that work for you. And it doesn't have to be, if we look at the recommendations of 150 minutes of exercise per week, that's extremely overwhelming. Bringing it down into small scheduled times and counting in chores that you might be doing, and gardening and walking your dog are all forms of fun physical activity. And Rachel, for yoga, how does one get started? How is somebody who's never taken up yoga or might be intimidated by seeing somebody online or on Instagram who's doing like a remarkable yoga pose, which looks a little intimidating? How do you encourage people to get started?
Well, one of the big stumbling blocks, which we have here on the slide, is thinking that you're not fit or flexible enough, and getting really carried away with what the media portrays as yoga. The other thing that comes up is, well, I don't have time anyway to fit it in. And, isn't it just stretching, and how does stretching help me? So my big message is that yoga is for everybody. Yoga can be done anywhere. You can be doing it sitting down. You can be doing it in the car. It's not just exercise. It's a system which is designed to work the body holistically, which includes the mind and the body. And even something simple, as I said earlier, like moving and breathing is yoga. And as soon as we focus the mind, it pulls us out of that tendency to get lost in all those stressful thoughts. And as soon as we reduce that stress, we balance our blood sugars and we feel more stable and balanced. And the other thing that comes up for people is that, well, I don't know, what sorts of yoga to do, or what's the right yoga for me. And that's where it's really good to know what kinds of yoga, when you try a style of yoga, your blood sugars might not respond how you expect. So there is a yoga that's right for you. So some of us are more fiery, some of us have more earth and water in our system, some of us have more air and space. And so the way we respond to physical exercise is dependent on our constitution, and that's something I love to share and explore in my book, is how you can actually determine the right yoga for you. Another thing that comes up for people is, when I go to a yoga class, I'm intimidated. There's all these people in there, and I have diabetes, and my alarms are going to go off, or I have to have sugar on, I have to have my glucose tabs on my mat. And to me, this is really about reaching out and connecting in an exercise situation like that, where you are able to, find a teacher and a class that is compassionate and understanding and welcomes you, and that's really important. So the three things that you need to connect with is that yoga is for everybody, and it's as simple as moving and breathing. Second, that you want to find the right yoga for you. And third, it's about reaching out and connecting and finding support in a yoga class so that you feel safe with everything that you need to do while you're in the class.
That's super excellent and interesting information. Also, whatever type of fitness that you're getting started with, and if it's on a continuum and you're progressing, I think what you both brought up, great points, is checking blood glucose and checking it more often, looking at your range before, during, and possibly afterwards, several times and up to 24 hours afterwards, to see the changes, especially if you are progressing from one type of exercise to another, or engaging in something that you may not have engaged in before, or if your recent treatment level with your diabetes and possibly some other comorbid condition has recently changed. So that's really important. Before we move on, just Rachel, I want you to speak just a moment more on the importance of breathing as it pertains to yoga, but just as it pertains to being a de-stressor, and the fact that many of us hold our breath when we're nervous and actually don't breathe through certain situations. I think that's super important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, breath is life, and the way we breathe is, a direct response to the experience around us. So the first thing that we do in a yoga practice is we ask you to observe your breath and to notice your breath, and also to notice where the breath sits in the body. So if the breath is more in the belly, then that's a sign that, we just have a natural ability to connect with the breath. And it's a very calming, a very restorative breath when we belly breathe. If we're breathing more in the diaphragm, in the upper chest, that's a more of a stress response breath. Now, neither is good or bad. It's just what we want to do in yoga is start to feel the breath both in the belly and the chest, so that we access the full breath capacity. And often what happens is, with our stress on high alert, our diaphragm, which is a smooth sheet of muscle which sits right underneath the rib cage, that gets tight. And so by going into different yoga positions and moving the body in different ways, we can actually access the breath so much more and increase our breath capacity. And that means when something stressful happens, we can actually stop, drop, and breathe. And just recently, I had the worst low blood sugar ever, and I had to remind myself in that moment, stop, hold still, follow your breath. It's all you can do while you're waiting you've taken your glucose tab. You have to wait for your blood sugar to come up. Just breathe. And it was amazing. It worked instantly.
That's great advice. Thank you, Rachel. I want to remind everybody as you're listening today, and I know this is such great advice, if you have any questions, please send them through, and we're going to try to get to as many questions today as we can. Next slide, please. Christel, I have to ask you about the Fit with Diabetes challenges. I've contributed to this before, and I think it's an amazing opportunity for people who want to get started with their fitness or people who are already fit going to the next level. So can you please take us through what DiabetesStrong.com is doing around the diabetes challenges?
Yes, absolutely. So the Diabetes Strong challenges are 4-week programs, I want to call it that, where people can sign up for free, and what they get is a structured overview of exercise and diabetes. Sometimes we have specific themes. So next one will be running in January. So if anybody listening is up for that, you should sign up in December. And what we focus on in January is usually weight management, because that's often a goal in January. So what we provide is daily information about how to go about weight management, how to include exercise, how to include healthy nutrition, all that with a diabetes perspective in mind. So again, everything we have on Diabetes Strong is diabetes related. It's written for people with diabetes, to a large degree by people with diabetes or people with the right background, like you said, Susan. And basically, I think what you see here on the right-hand side, so this is a testimonial from one of our participants. And I think what this shows is it shows the power of structured information as well as peer support. So peer support is important because we also have a closed Facebook group with now about 13,000 people. So it's huge, but anybody who participates in the challenges are encouraged to go join the group, share their results, share their daily challenges. Challenge could be, today we're going to incorporate 10 minutes of extra movement. Today we're going to cook a healthy meal for ourselves. Or today we're going to be kind to ourselves, because it's not just a physical part, it's also the mental part. So I think what people get out of it is some people are on there every day doing every challenge. Some people are only doing a few things, because we all at different points in our lives, right, in our diabetes journey and our fitness journey. And some people are only interested in or only benefit from the information that teaches them about how to manage blood sugars during exercise. While some are looking for guidance on food, some are looking for guidance on yoga, because Rachel has also been kind enough to be part of our challenges. So that's basically what it is. But I think most important is structured information and peer support.
I would totally agree, and I love the multiple ways that you have information included in the challenges. The peer support is, like you said, everything. That's the lived experience that's being included here. As a certified diabetes educator, I also am very impressed on the quality of your information and the fact that you do include some of the latest news things that are coming up that they're controversial topics, but you do speak about them because they're out there. So that's wonderful and fantastic. Next slide, please. And the fitness coaching, is that part of Diabetes Strong as well?
Well, it is. It's a part of the Diabetes Strong in the sense that I pretty much am the lead on Diabetes Strong, and I do work with people one-on-one. So I think the important thing about this slide is not so much talking about my coaching as such, but talking about, well, what can you get out of working with a diabetes coach? And I think somebody like me, well, what I focus on is the exercise part of things. So what you can get from working like with somebody like me or equivalent is, it's help with structure and it's help with information so that you can build confidence to go out, be successful on your own. I'm all about empowerment. And this is what this talks to. I believe that everybody with diabetes have the right and to exercise and be healthy. Every time somebody reaches out to me and say, hey, I can't exercise because I have diabetes, first of all, I get sad. And then second, I then move to the, let me help you fix this. Because with the right information, you can do this. And when I say the right, because when we talk about the right information, right, it's about knowing the general principles of how exercise impact blood sugars. And this, again, is specific, that was specifically for people on insulin or some of the type 2 drugs. But also just in general, it's where do we start? Back to what I said earlier on. Let's find out what makes you happy, which kind of movement gives you joy. And then we put on the next layer saying, okay, what about your diabetes management? How would that get impacted by this activity?
And it's all about the empowerment is so important as it relates to the fancy word is self-management behaviors, and that's really what it is. 99% of diabetes care is self-care. So you're providing a lot of the tools that one would need, but they're not with you all the time. They get a lot of support, but not with you all the time. It's taking the tools and the guidance that you're offering and a team approach is offering and being able to do it in off times.
Exactly. And some people, I've heard some people say, well, diabetes is random. My perspective is, no, it's not random, but we don't have full information. And often we don't have enough background knowledge to stick together the pieces of information we do have. So that's kind of one of those things I'm working on, because when you go as a person with diabetes, you go to your doctor to maybe see your endo, they only have so much time. They can't teach you everything under the sun.
Right.
And it's also, it also depends on what questions you ask, right? So sometimes there's a lot of benefit in sitting down with somebody who's been in your shoes and who can help you, guide you.
Right. That support is everything. So important. Sarah, can we have the next slide, please? And just if you can quickly talk a little bit about Rachel, and this is a different Rachel that's featured on this slide.
Yeah, so I wanted to just share a little bit about how I work with people who are living with diabetes and how yoga helps them. One of the things that I did was I put together a 7-step program, which was an online challenge. It's a challenge you can sign up for. And in it, I offered like 7 different ways that you could incorporate yoga into your life. So not just posture, but breathing, meditation, gesture, which is a way to calm the nervous system, a simple daily routine of, covering yourself with beautiful oils, working with visualization, creating beauty in your life, just all working with gratitude, lots of different ways. And then we have a peer support group where there's just daily input and information in there. And something beautiful that happened as part of this peer support group, which is where this testimonial from diabetes sister Karen Rose Tank comes from, is that she shared that, the beauty of using her yoga practice to help her with her low blood sugar, or what happened and how it supported her. So I just think yoga is such a great, there's so many different approaches with the yoga practice, and they can really help people to thrive with diabetes.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I apologize at the beginning. I said it's a different Rachel case study. I'm looking at Karen's picture and thinking Rachel because it says Rachel case study. So I was not doing my deep breathing there for a minute, and now I see it as I'm looking here. So important of activating your environment and the talking about the oils, because the reward that a lot of people go to, and that's my registered dietitian hat coming on to a certain extent, is a lot of times with food. People reward themselves or think they're rewarding themselves with food by overeating, or think they're punishing themselves with food by undereating. And rather than being mindful and being in the moment, that's a discussion for a future webinar. But I love what you said here, Rachel, about embracing that moment of rewarding yourself with oils and things that smell good, and just appreciating everything that's around you for that time. I think a recent number that I saw is people are so on their devices, and for the attendees listening right now, how many of you are on two devices at the same time, looking at your computer and your cell phone on the side? So about 62% of people have two devices running at any one time. Very different, very difficult to be mindful of where you are if you're not in the moment. So thank you so much for sharing that. And congratulations for Karen for embracing yoga and what it can do for her. Next slide, please. And Rachel, can you tell us a little bit more about this personalized program?
Yeah, so when I work with people one-on-one, the first thing I want to do is use the sister science of yoga, which is Ayurveda, which has been treating diabetes for over 4,000 years, to discover the right yoga for their type. So it's an extensive questionnaire on really saying, okay, how do you respond to exercise? How do you respond to food? How do you respond to life? You know, what is your body type? What feels good for you? And then we determine the right practice. And then there's a very specific way that you should work with your body through the yoga practices. And then we do ongoing fine tuning. And what was really beautiful when I worked with this woman, Anna, was that she worked with me for over 6 weeks. She did the routine every day. And she had a lot of trouble with crashing lows and no sleep. And she said to me that within 10 days of doing this routine, she started sleeping through the night, and that she had a lot less hypoglycemic episodes. So to me, that was just an instant yes. I was like, wow, you know, this yoga absolutely worked for her, which was so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where you're also saying that different yogas for different people. So that's amazing. That's incredible. Next slide, please. Before we move on and speak about very important resources from both of you, let's just take a moment and a step back. And can both of you just share some of your key takeaways of people listening today of getting focused and getting started, and what some of the benefits are of these different types of exercise, whether it's general fitness or yoga? Rachel, why don't you start?
So the key takeaways I feel from the yoga practices are that, you know, you don't need to be fit and flexible, that yoga is for everybody. You need to find the right practice for you. You need to really see yoga as a holistic program. So it's not just, you know, it's not just the postures. It's, as you mentioned, Susan, it's the breathing. And one of the things we haven't talked about yet is meditation or concentration or mindfulness, which is really being aware of our thoughts in relationship to our diabetes, and realizing through the yoga practice there's a sense of depersonalization, and you don't get as involved, you don't get so reactive to your thoughts. You start to see your thoughts as things that come and go. They're always going to be there. You can't get rid of them, but you don't have to identify with them. And as you do that, you start to see that you have the disease, but you cannot be the disease. And it just gives you that space and that freedom, and you can come back to yourself. So yoga is so much about learning to accept, love, and be there for yourself.
And Christel, how would you respond to that question?
Well, what I would say is, and we talked about this, exercise can be pretty much be whatever you want it to be. Focus on, you know, getting your heart rate up, getting more movement. That being said, you know, I'm a big believer in resistance training. Resistance training just for you, just to explain out what that is very briefly, is any way you put resistance on your muscles. So it doesn't have to be a gym, it doesn't have to be big weights. It can also be resistance bands or body weight. But the reason why I'm such a firm believer in resistance training is it's the most effective way of improving your insulin sensitivity in the long run. Okay, so that's awesome. But if you need to start out with, walking, do that. So again, or dancing, swimming, hiking, whatever, find what's fun. And the next thing would be when you found out, what you want to do, start slow and start tracking. When I say tracking, this is all about figuring out how does this type of exercise impact your blood sugars. And why do I want you to track? Well, because, first of all, anybody who takes insulin, we know the real risk of going low during or after exercise. It's real and it's very uncomfortable. I'm not saying you can prevent it, but I'm saying that by tracking and what I call finding your formula for exercise and diabetes, you can, to a large degree, prevent a lot of those nasty lows or even highs. So different kinds of exercise, because different kinds of exercise will impact blood sugars differently. So, and we're also individuals, so there's also that component. So that's why I say take everything down, as Susan said earlier, measure your blood sugars, but also keep track on your insulin.
Absolutely.
On board. What did you eat? What time of day did you exercise? Yeah. So
all great advice. All great
be
advice.
Prepared.
Yeah, be prepared. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
We have some amazing resources that are listed here for everybody to look at and download. And in the interest of time, because I want these guys to talk a little bit more about their particular resources in the next couple of minutes before we get to our questions, can you go to the next slide, please? So Christel, tell us a little bit about the Fit with Diabetes ebook.
Sure. Basically my mission is to reach as many people with diabetes as possible. As I mentioned before, whenever I hear somebody tell me, hey, I can't because of my diabetes, yes, you can. If you know what's going on, if you have the right knowledge, if you're armed with the right knowledge, you can. You absolutely can. So I wanted to provide an accessible tool. And I have all of the information basically scattered across my website, but I let people reaching out going like, could you maybe put those 2,000 pages in a more easy digestible format? So that's basically how the Fit with Diabetes ebook came to be. It's we built on a lot of the same principles as we're doing the challenges and on the website in general. So it's always in my voice. My voice is, yes, diabetes can be hard, but we can do something. We can go out, we can be active, we can live happy lives. So it's with that empowering tone in mind. So I would say it's primarily for people who are on insulin. I will get to the other book later on.
And I have no doubt that you will. I have no doubt. Next slide, please. And Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, so as I said at the beginning, I went online to find out about yoga and diabetes, and I just couldn't find a book which covered yoga for type 1 and type 2. So I just wanted to write the book from my perspective of, not only just to tell my personal story, but also to incorporate everything that I have learned about yoga in my 35 years of practice. There is a yoga that's right for you. There's a way to determine that yoga can be fun, accessible, inspiring, and motivating, and that the book includes breathing, meditation, gratitude. It even has like symptoms and remedies. So if you're experiencing something very specific with your diabetes, related to your digestion or anxiety, there's even a series of poses that you can put together for that. But mainly I wanted it to be available to everybody. So, my mission, like Christel's mission, is she wants to reach everybody with diabetes. I'm exactly the same. I just think yoga is just such a wonderful complement. So I wrote the book to try and really reach as many people as possible, to support them and to help them to feel happier and healthier. And the beautiful thing really about yoga is, when you do a yoga practice, you start the yoga practice, you measure your blood sugars, you finish the yoga practice, and if you found the right yoga for you, There should be no change in your level. So it's a very safe form of exercise, as well as being very harmonizing and beautiful.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it. And to both of you, I say to the people that I work with that you should get a prescription from your healthcare provider not to exercise. Okay? Everyone says that and you should always check, of course, when you're embarking on an exercise program, but everyone can do something. So let's go to our first question that's here, which is a good one. The biggest question as a type 1 is preventing lows during and after exercise. I suspect you'll speak about this, but I thought to send the note along. So I'd ask you first, and what I was saying about the prescription not to exercise is people are like, oh, I have to ask my doctor if I can do something because maybe my blood glucose levels have been out of range. If you are checking and embarking on something, chances are that that's part of your treatment plan, as we said at the beginning. So do either of you want to answer this question? Who would like to take it first?
Christel, I think you should go.
I'd be happy to. That's something I could talk about for a long time. But, so as I kind of alluded to it before, as people with type 1 or type 2 on insulin as well, there's a real risk of going low during exercise. So the key is, and I'm going to try and make this short, I'm going to do my best. The key is to understand how different types of exercise might impact your blood sugar. So in general, there's two types of exercise. There's aerobic exercise, which is, imagine going for a jog, taking a swimming, hiking. So stuff where your heart rate comes up and pretty much stays up, and then when you stop, it comes down, right? So it's kind of like a nice increased curve. So that type of exercise will, for the most part, make blood sugars drop, versus anaerobic exercise, which can be resistance training or sprints, something like that. That can actually make blood sugars increase during exercise, but it will make it drop later on due to increased insulin sensitivity. Okay, so that's kind of the two types. So just knowing that there's these two types and what they generally do to your blood sugars can make you start think about, well, which kind of strategies can you implement in order to prevent a high or low blood sugar, right? And basically there's two levers. You can either eat more carbs, or you can reduce your insulin. That's pretty much the two things you can do. So again, back to what I said about taking notes, keeping track of what's going on, is finding the patterns that apply to you. So if you work out every morning, let's say 8 a.m., let's say right before breakfast, okay, then it's probably 7 a.m. or 6 a.m., but that's in the morning and you're fasted, so you don't have any insulin on board, you can track what's going on with your blood sugars. And if you only have a meter, track every 15 minutes maybe for the first 2 times, write everything down and look for trends. If you find that you go low, well, you will need to either reduce your insulin or eat more carbs.
And so, and I know that that was a fantastic explanation. Thank you so much for that. And we're going to end it there just in the interest of time.
Yep.
But I think that should inspire everyone to reach out to these two, because they are phenomenal with tons of information, as is the Diabetes Sisters website. And we would be glad, anybody who has questions that we didn't get to today because we were jam-packed with so much other information, we really do encourage you to reach out. All 3 of us are very accessible, to reach out to us anytime. And I want to thank everyone for listening today and for joining us. And it's absolutely been an honor to work with you guys. Thank you all so much for coming today.
Thank you all.
Thank you. It's been fantastic to be here with everybody.
Absolutely.
Hi, everyone. This is Sarah Mardigan. Thank you so much to Christel and Rachel and to Susan for moderating this amazing panel today. And as Susan said, if anyone has additional questions for any of our 3 speakers today, please email us at info@diabetessisters.org, and we will make sure that they get your questions and that you get answers. Before we sign off, I want to thank each and every one of you for registering and participating in our webinar today. By tomorrow, we will post the slides and the audio from today's session on our website at diabetessisters.org. Please subscribe to our monthly e-news for information on our upcoming webinars. And thank you again so much for tuning in.